Hello everyone, I'm Sander Berghmans and I am a researcher at GUBERNA, the Belgian Institute for Directors. Now, as all of you know, artificial intelligence or AI is increasingly becoming more prominent in our world. Whether or not board members have already encountered AI in their roles, they will undoubtedly confront it in the near future. To assist board members in navigating the challenges posed by AI, GUBERNA has chosen to organize a series of webinars on this topic. Today we will delve into the practical implications of AI. For this purpose we have invited an expert in the field, Geert Scheipers, from our partner Delaware, to join us in the studio. Thank you for being here, Geert. Perhaps you could introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you for having me, Sander, and thank you for the nice introduction. So my name is Geert Scheipers. I'm partner at Delaware. My field is strategy management, so I design, formulate, and implement strategies with our customers. Digital transformation is a key component of that, and obviously also artificial intelligence. Delaware does implementation work next to business consulting work. We do this with an organization of approximately 5,000 people across 15 countries in the world as a network. We are an integrated organization. Besides that, I'm also professor at Antwerp Management School in the field of strategy management.
So yeah, you do seem to be a very experienced person to address all these questions. So
we'll see, Sander, we'll see.
No, I'm very convinced of that fact. So maybe we will start with the question of how boards can leverage AI to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of their companies.
That's a very good question and a very comprehensive question, obviously, because it relates to the fundamental role that members of a board have. And for us, obviously, managing the value of an organization, whether it be a private organization, a semi-public or a public organization, for us, defining the value is key, but then also ensuring that we deliver on that value. And we see it as a component, an integrated component of three key elements. So there is the perspective of the strategy. It is the role of the board, obviously, to define the strategy and follow up on the strategy. But next to that, and that is very important, it also has to do with resource allocation. And then the third element for us is governance, making sure that we deliver on the commitments that we've made and ensure that we also deal with organizations that comply to the rules and regulations that are relevant to them. We think AI can have an impact on all these three dimensions, delivering on the performance of an organization. And we believe that boards truly have a very important role to fulfill there.
Yeah, you started with going to the topic of strategy, and I mean, if we are looking at strategy, obviously these other aspects are as well very important for the efficiency and effectiveness of a company. But if we look at strategy, I was wondering, like, if we use AI in strategy and strategy development, maybe, will this not lead to very uniform strategies across companies, that all companies will have basically the same strategy?
Again, a very good question, I think. Sure, we need to make sure that an organization's strategy does two things. First, you need to charm your stakeholders, make sure that you address the customer needs, the jobs to be done, as we say. But next to that, also, that we are able to position ourselves next to our competitors, that we are relevant to the arenas that we operate in. And that combination, obviously, can be enhanced by using AI. I'll dive into that later on. Now, you could wonder, if we use AI, aren't we coming up with kind of generic or very homogeneous strategies, as you say? But we could have that same question even without using AI. Organizations have been looking at other organizations, trying to copy, trying to mimic them, and trying to just do whatever other organizations have done. within their sector, but sometimes also mimic things that are relevant to them coming from other sectors. And so there I think, yeah, copying is not necessarily bad. As long as you address these jobs to be done, it's okay. Should we worry about the fact that AI might not necessarily bring organizations with a creative and relevant and inspired strategy? There I think you're right. So that is probably a very important role still to fulfill by board members, to make sure that the suggestions that our AI systems do, that these suggestions are being tested for, I think, ethical aspects, and we'll dive into that later also probably in our conversation. And then also these aspects of, yeah, is it inspiring enough? Does it address that job to be done? And is it really helping the organization to be distinctive? Because driving that competitive advantage, making sure that we do these relevant things, even for public sector organizations, is key still.
And would you recommend certain things to do so to really make sure that you don't have a generic?
Ah, that's a very interesting one. So a couple of years ago, together with GUBERNA, we set off to discuss, also with our partners at the VUB, to deliver a project that we could investigate, doing an experiment on how to use AI in the boardroom. We called it Aura. And in that respect, we had very profound conversations with our colleagues here at GUBERNA, but also with the VUB. And so we identified that, yeah, we could help organizations to come up with better strategies and implement their strategies in multiple ways by using AI. First thing, in designing strategies, we said, yeah, there is an element of identifying data points, identifying what is happening around us as an organization and within the organization. So using data in order to come up with feedback on your current strategy and enhance the strategy formulation dialogues that we need to have in order to supplement our strategies with that extra set of data. Do anomaly detection, identify specific spikes and stuff like that. But then we had a conversation with the people from VUB. They said, yeah, but we need to be very careful. If we just use the existing data, or if we use the existing information, we might come up with plain strategies. And so then we identified that idea of bringing in serendipity. And even in our algorithms, the people from VUB said, yeah, we might induce our AI systems with that aspect of serendipity.
Sorry for interrupting you. Maybe you should explain the element or the meaning of serendipity to the audience.
By all means. Serendipity is that very creative thing, yeah, that pops up during a conversation and that can truly make a difference in terms of a crux that an organization faces with. So it's the creative spark that comes out of a conversation, that comes out of reflection. And people can have that. By the way, we had that in the board. It's like the eureka moment, like, wow, now we've got it. This is really going to shift the needle. And that element of serendipity could also be introduced in our algorithms. And so the data that we produced was not just compiling and coherently presenting what was already there, but it created some extra element. Maybe you can also relate it to what we currently have as a disadvantage in AI systems, and for sure in transformer systems like ChatGPT or Gemini, to balance things out here. We often see that these systems produce things which we can call hallucinations.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if these hallucinations can be driven by an extra element in our algorithm relating to serendipity, we might not see these hallucinations as a bad thing, but they might truly help us to come up with better strategies. So that is the element of serendipity.
So some sort of strategic creativity.
Strategic creativity is a good term.
Yeah,
absolutely. That is what we refer to. Now, obviously there, the system can present it to us, the system can provide it to us. We need to always have a conversation about it. And so that strategic dialogue within the board is key. So, and that is what the board members have been doing, but now augmented by AI. You know, we have a very specific definition of strategy. At Delaware, we say strategy, and by the way, there are not that many good definitions of strategy. Even Michael Porter, when he said, when he wrote the paper, what is strategy, question mark, he did not actually include a good definition of strategy. So our definition of strategy is an explicit, shared mental model that describes how you will be successful and that you use for judgment and decision making. It's exactly in the core of what boards should do. But you can augment it with algorithms. You can augment it with data. You can augment that conversation on that mental model, that making explicit that mental model by using technology such as artificial intelligence.
And with regard to the data, do you think that people should have, is there a danger in, for example, that we start to use data from big companies to formulate a strategy, or should we develop our own databases?
For sure, and that is also, but this is not new.
Yeah.
It might be an element that we need to explicitly address while using AI, but we had that in the past too.
Yeah.
So our conversations with our customers were often like, hey guys, how can we start a strategy process? Shouldn't we first start collecting data? And sure, we need to have data to underpin our strategies. But we should not wait for the perfect data to exist, because there is no such thing as perfect data. So let's have that conversation and use our definition, make our strategy as explicit as possible, model it as much as possible, so we can start implementing, testing, optimizing, implementing, reviewing, testing, optimizing, and see this as a continuous process. So I think there, it is just whatever we've been doing in the past, now trying to optimize it. And I truly believe that AI is a game changer in that respect, because the efficiency in terms of the time we use in order to have these conversations can be dramatically augmented. Because, the logical interpretation of the data, the generation of the data, the suggestions that we can do, the hypotheses that we can form, it increases dramatically by using AI.
Yes, and if I may go a little bit further on the data sets, do you see a difference in how AI should be used if you look at the size and the scope of the data sets used by the board?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I think it's a very relevant one again. Now, we might first want to be very careful, what is AI? In terms that advanced analytics might be also comprised within AI for us. So we use data sets in order to interpret them, provide information or suggestions for decision making. That is how we approach AI. And so in these data sets, and what we do with these data sets is a relevant thing in terms of data points. We talk about thin and thick data. The thick data you might describe as maybe the big data sets, where some organizations have access to large sets of data, but then the question is, what is the signal that comes out of it? There, for us, we use the strategy as a reference to identify within these data sets what are we learning. And it can be related directly to these critical success factors that comprise your strategy, but also the causal relationships amongst these critical success factors. But it can also be something that is within the context of this strategy, helping us to adapt our strategy, as I referred to previously. That is the big or the thick data. Next to that, there's also very thin data in organization. But that very thin data, if it's relevant, again, relating to that strategy, using that as a reference, it might be very relevant for us as an organization to make optimal use of it. But our advanced analytics can really help us to optimally use both thick and thin data these days.
Okay, and so you should then use a sort of different AI if you're dealing with the one or the other.
That is for sure. But there again, if I may refer, and maybe may sound a bit old here, but I'm trying to make these segues. I wanted to refer to, that is what we've been saying in the past too. When we present the data to the board, information of what sort? And in the past, it was often very myopic towards the financials. So we presented the board with the data. Then we also had to say there is different systems for different purposes. So there are different methods to provide you with, in that time, just financial information. And so we had multiple systems, like we had activity-based costing, we had our budget, we had our planning, we had our forecasting, had different accounting systems also that provided relevant information. It's that discussion that we need to have with the board. But we can also make that translation now to AI and the current times that we're living in. Yeah, we should be very careful which algorithms to use, which data sets to use, and how then to put them to most optimal use, not just in strategy formulation, as I said, but also in the resource allocation and in the governance processes, observing whether or not we are compliant with whatever we agreed to do within a legal framework, but also within an ethical and a moral framework, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I think that's a very interesting analysis of what AI should do and how you should use it. Yeah.
And there I think there is a call to members of the board to study, to read, to reflect, to be open to what is happening outside. And I think GUBERNA can be a real partner in that respect, just to share information. What are we doing? What is available? How should we approach it? And sharing that information in an open manner amongst members within the same profession, I think that could be truly helpful.
Yeah, indeed, at GUBERNA we indeed try to convince board members to understand the AI, know what's happening in the AI, and know how to use it if they are using it, and keep in the loop, be the human in the loop.
Here you go. But because there we often say, you do not know what you do not know. Yeah. You only need to make sure that you do not know a lot of things. And some people are not really aware of it. And sometimes that kind of hubris is quite prominent also amongst board members. We all have our references, we all have our backgrounds, and sure, we need to put them to best possible use. But there are lots of things that we do not know. Yeah. And hence, knowing that, we can start learning, or we can be open to the input that we get, both from our human counterparts in the boards, but then also from that AI system that is helping us, that can augment board activity.
Yeah. Okay. If I may shift the topic a little bit,
I'm your guest, so you're in control.
we will stay a little bit in the field of strategy, but I was wondering if we look at the digitization of companies. I mean, AI is related to that. What do you think? How can AI fulfill a role in that?
It's an interesting question, but I would turn it around if I may. I think AI is an element of digitization, a key component of digitization. And I think we should use a more formal process in order to augment our strategies with the bounty of technology. And amongst them, AI is obviously a key element. So we have we call it the smart adoption model to help organizations to become smart businesses. And for us, smart businesses is an organization, referring back to our definition of strategy, that creates value, and it can be monetary, it can be social, it can be societal value, or a combination of any of these four elements. It creates value in a way that you are better, faster, cheaper, and more convenient. And the combination of these things, and there, digital technology is truly a game changer again. Because in the past, we had to say, oh, we cannot do everything. And that's for sure. But doing everything does not mean that at the same time, you cannot increase the value of the services that you provide, and at the same time, try to lower the costs that you incur in order to provide these products or services. Because technology has that effect of enabling us to drive up the value while at the same time also driving down the costs. And so this is something that we need to take along here. Now, doing so, creating value, means also taking into account the the relevant questions that our stakeholders might have, because we are there for our stakeholders. And it's not just the shareholder, it's also our employees, it's society at large, so to speak. So that societal element in the way we create value by means of digitization is key. And so in that respect, coming from that definition or that interpretation, that take on digital transformation, we have that smart adoption model, which allows members of the board to allocate their scarce resources in the most possible way. And what we do there is we make explicit their business models. So what is it that makes tick this organization? So we make that explicit. And then next to that, we look at the technologies that we can use in order to sprinkle over, so to speak, if I can use that metaphor, to sprinkle over this business model. So you have your operating model, and I'll call it operating model, because it's probably also relevant for these public and semi-public organizations. So over your business model, you sprinkle technology, amongst which AI in certain domains, and then you look at what is it really going to help me in better offerings, faster, cheaper, and more convenient, as I called it. But then the question for board members is, now I know that technology can really augment the value that I create, but what about the resources that I have? Because these resources are scarce. And there we look at a dimension which we call the maturity of your technology. Yeah. And by looking at the maturity of the technology and the expected impact on your operating model, we then come up with, as we do in strategy, a 2x2 matrix, where we say if the maturity is quite low and the expected impact is also low, then we say we just observe and follow. If the maturity is low, but the expected impact is quite high, we say, we need to do experiments. If the maturity is high, expected impact is low, then we say, this is kind of like operational excellence. Please do so as long as you can fit it into your current operations. Now, obviously, if the maturity is high and the expected impact on the operating model is quite high, we need to really put our money where our mouth is, and we say, here is what we need to invest in, because it's really going to be a game changer for the future. And so that is how we try to help members of the board in order to allocate their scarce resources. And these resources are for all organizations scarce, but we need to have a model that helps us to allocate scarce resources also in times of digitization.
Okay, yeah. And if you, because obviously you already mentioned it very briefly, if you look at the stakeholders, and it's not only for a digitization strategy, but it's just for everything where AI is used, if it's in the company or in the board, you have obviously, you need to take into account stakeholders. You also have a more ethical aspects. How do you look at that if we're talking about AI in the board?
Very good point, but may I untangle these two elements, because I think the ethical aspect we really need to zoom into that. But I also want to zoom into that element of engaging with your stakeholders. Yeah. And there I believe that transformer systems like ChatGPT, they can really help us to communicate in a different way with our stakeholders, towards our clients, which we've been doing with our chatbots in the sales processes and in the after-sales processes and in the interaction. But more importantly, I think also in terms of communicating about your strategy and informing the stakeholders about your strategy, but also asking them to have a dialogue with you about your strategy. These days, organizations who ignore their stakeholders in defining strategy, they will be easily disappointed and quickly disappointed when they introduce their strategy and the first push comes back from their stakeholders. And this is the times that we are living on. So we need to take that into account. And so my advice to my customers is recently is use ChatGPT or other types of transformer systems which help us to communicate about our strategy. But also, obviously, we need to inform them with our strategy. So these models need to be trained or need to refer back to our strategy. But that conversation now can be bi-directional rather than in the past it was or ignored, as I explained, or we only had it one directional and we just kept pushing out our information and there was no interface with our stakeholders. And so this is very important. Like for example, for hospitals. I do a lot of work in hospitals these days, and they are bundled in networks, and it's quite difficult from a governance perspective. By the way, maybe this is an opening for another podcast or a webcast that we can do. But you see that these hospitals, they do not live in a vacuum. They have all sorts of stakeholders, the patients, but also caretakers of patients. It's the first line respondents, pharmacists, stuff like that. And so an organization that is not able to have that bi-directional communication, for sure these days, hospitals, yeah, they're flying in the blind, and they're actually not doing the right things for the future. So we use AI in order to have these conversations. And we capture the data, and we use that data informing the discussions on our strategy, but also the discussion on translating that strategy into processes, obviously. Yeah? Yeah. So that is what we do these days.
Okay, yeah. I think brings us a little bit back to the ethical aspect. Because, if we are talking about gathering data about, for example, patients in hospitals, you have privacy issues. There may be, yes, even some strange decisions that are made. If you're talking about hospitals, life and death may even be decided by an AI. So how do you look at that?
That's a very broad question, and all things pop up now. But it's very interesting. Let's pick them out, and please help me if I missed out on some of these elements. The first thing is, for sure, we need to protect the data of our patients. But that is what we had to do in the past also. We did not throw away our management accounting information. I did not want to for sure not my competitors, but neither my customers, if not relevant to them, but neither my partners. I did not want them to know what my cost model looked like internally. So I did not share that. So we keep we for sure that the legitimacy of our data is being preserved, of our own proprietary data. And we, like for example, customer data, patient data, and the like, we really need to take care of that. That's our role as an organization. That's our commitment towards our stakeholders. Otherwise, we will not be, we will violate our mission, actually. So people do entrust us with their very private data. We need to take care of them. So that is something that we need to ensure. Need to have audit systems, we need to have follow-up systems in order to do so. And as a member of the board, I would really focus on that. But that is something that you can easily organize, I think.
According to you, there's no danger that, for example, if we use AI from an external partner that gathers data from our patients or customers, there are no new challenges with regards to that.
But that's not what I've said, Sander. But you're absolutely right, because there might be challenges. But as I said, it's the organization who need to ensure that the data that has been entrusted to them is taken care of in the best possible way. That's our obligation towards our stakeholders. Otherwise, the legitimacy of the organization will easily be eroded. So that's our real important job. But we need to have good contracts with them. We need to put the data in a secluded domain, even if it's on the cloud. There are solutions to that. But we need to ensure that these solutions are being applied to that aspect, for sure. Now, if we train models with that comes to your thing, like is the algorithm going to decide on life or death? That's an interesting question. It's a very interesting question.
It's very extreme. It's very extreme.
It's a very good one. But these days, people are entrusted with that responsibility to decide on life and death. And sometimes people are fallible too, you know? We all have our cognitive biases. Luckily, this morning, I woke up and I slept very well, so I was very energetic. But sometimes I sleep bad, so I have all worries. And then maybe the decisions that I take very early in the morning, mostly before I have my first coffee, are not very qualitative either. That can happen. So we need to ensure that these cognitive biases, these human characteristics, are overcome, that we deal with them in the most optimal way. And in respect to AI, my suggestion always is use AI as an augmenter, not as something that replaces, but put it next to, for example, clinicians. And then you have decision support systems. And that, I think, again, that can really increase effectiveness of our decision making, but also efficiency of our decision making. And that's a responsibility that we also have. The cost of, for example, healthcare systems, our social care. Yeah, we need to reflect on it. Is this something that we should only entrust into human beings and human processes, while there is technology that can really support us with that? I'm pretty sure that it will increase the quality of the outcomes and at the same time can lower the cost. But that is what we call value-based management in the healthcare. So I think there the thing is, I believe in augmented, supported, so decision support systems in that respect. And there's always a human being. That brings us maybe also to this moral aspect in decision making. And that is also a reason why you never can have these type of very important decisions made just by the system. But that was the problem with human beings too. We also had that element of moral hazard. Sometimes people are totally ignorant of their responsibility. I'm far away, I'm behind the desk, I read my reports, so I don't care about my employees that I have to lay off. I don't care about the customers that I'm trying to rip off. That's not okay. So there is a moral aspect, and there again, I think members of the board have a very important role to fulfill. They have to ask these questions. They need to follow up with the executives in order that these moral standards have been applied according to what we've agreed upon. And so a moral charter, an ethical charter, I think is very, very important. And AI needs to be taken along with that. That's just a new technology that pops in, and it's kind of like a resource that we now have at our disposal, and we need to use these resources in the best possible way. We can use them with a good outcome. We can probably also use them with a bad outcome, and that's our decision. That's why human beings need to be there.
Yeah, I think I'm indeed convinced of the fact because that we should use it to support our decisions, because I mean, there were already some scholars who expressed their concern, excuse me, of the fact that AI has no feelings, has no emotions, and more importantly,
no fatigue.
No fatigue, but also no empathy.
That's true.
Which makes it the ideal psychopath.
Yeah, so that's true. And indeed, you refer to an interesting concept, a psychopath, because they can mimic empathy quite efficiently.
Yeah, that's true.
That is what is dangerous. So I think boards need to know when information is being generated by an algorithm and when not. And this is key, I think. By the way, it's not just boards who should know that. I think as a customer, I also want to know whether I'm chatting with an algorithm or whether I'm chatting with a human being. And of course, that algorithm can have these characteristics as a human being conversation. That's all okay, but I want to know whether I'm chatting with the system, yes or no. For sure also, because you've probably also read the papers recently, with the introduction of GPT-4o.
Okay, yeah.
That is really, again, the way we communicate. We can add humor to the conversation. We can add some emotional aspects to the conversation. That might be scary if we do not know whether it's a human being or whether it's an algorithm. And I think we need to audit that. We need to make that explicit. That's just this line of text has been generated by. That's also how we ask our students. Just be honest where your information comes from. If not, we will test it with systems. And I think all of us will need to have kind of a scanner, whether that empathy is real empathy coming from a human being rather than empathy being mimicked by a psychopathic AI system.
And this brings us directly to our next question, because I suppose a lot of people in the audience already will have some fear about AI. Now we talked about its psychopathic nature.
No, it's not nature, It's not nature,
Not nature.
It's how we train it, how we want it to be trained. And by the way, this is very important. The way we train these systems, we need to reflect on it. And Stuart Russell has created, and please come up with your question. Sorry for interrupting you, but it was an interesting one. Stuart Russell. I think the book is called Human. I'm not sure how it's called. The listener should, or we can put it on their
in the description.
In
we
the
will put the description.
Yeah, absolutely. Stuart Russell, Human AI, it's called, I think, Human AI, and there he calls for a kind of like a fundamental law where we say AI systems should always put in service of mankind. And we need to agree on that. It's like fundamental laws of how do you call them? The people's rights.
Yeah, okay.
Fundamental people's rights. So we need to have that law where we always say systems should come in favor of human mankind. And hence there, I think, yeah, they need to serve us. It is not serving the system. And we need to have a switch on-off which allows us to turn off the system if it's no longer serving us.
Yeah, or overrule decisions.
Overrule, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
and so there's always, we need to observe. And there is a very important role for board members, again, I think. Sorry, I interrupted your question.
Should they be scared?
Should they be scared? I don't think we can be scared of everything.
Yeah.
As I said, I see AI as a resource, as a common resource that we have access to. And we can use these resources in an optimal way and in a negative way. And it's our role to make decisions which are the benefit of us human beings now and for the future. And so we need to reflect on that.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, we should indeed reflect on that, and maybe not only is it the scare about how we use it or how it can be used, but also maybe for some board members, will AI take over my job?
That's an interesting one. That's a very good one. And I've been reflecting on that. I don't think so, as I said. I think what I've explained, there is a very important role still to fulfill for board members. So it was a couple of weeks ago, I think, on the Belgian television news, there was a little item on translators. Yeah. Who are losing their jobs because of all these systems like DeepL and even ChatGPT and Gemini. You can ask them to translate, and they're very good in translating. But still, good translators, they can bring in nuance. They see the differences, but they can also spot these anomalies and the hallucinations that the system still has, because that is very important. This system is trained to provide us with an answer that we find pleasing. Yeah. I should always take that in mind. It is trying to please us. Might be good in a certain way, but when it's over-pleasing us and doing things to us which are not good to us, we should reflect on it. Now, coming back to then the board members, I don't think that board members should fear that their role is being pushed away by AI systems. But again, there, I truly believe in augmenting the decision-making process. Because, as I said, we are fallible. And we often reflect from our own frames. I've had board meetings where I thought, oh, damn, nice intervention, and I truly respect you as an individual, but this is really just a very specific case for yourself that you're generalizing. I spoke to my neighbor, and she is a customer, and she wants this, and then I think, damn, this is not what we want. So there, I think, algorithms, AI, can really help us to do this much better, to provide better data, to interpret better data, and to support us in our decision-making process. That is the way I see it, and maybe also, this is a call for action for all of us. That is maybe the way we want to see the future evolve. If we are not active in this respect, maybe some organization will say, oh yeah, we will have a cost saving, we will get rid of our board members. Maybe it's not the way we want our organizations to be governed. So I think we need to be active in there and say, hey guys, AI, yes, please, yes, there is a lot of effectiveness and efficiency that comes with it, but as an augmentation of the activities that we do in order to support us in the activities that we do.
And are there certain tasks that of board members that will be more easily be taken over. So the board member will not disappear, but some of its tasks or things they will do will disappear or be taken over by AI. According to you, what tasks?
Very good question, and probably it's the dull tasks, the tasks that require a lot of time for people to invest in. And so that might be filling in checklists, following up on things. Maybe that is something that we can try to indeed, how do you call it? You cannot allocate it to a system for sure. So there I believe we can make a step change, which frees up time for us to reflect on things, to have conversations, human to human, supported by AI, but have true ingenious decisions to become what we call a wise company or a wise leader also. And it's not a concept that I created. It comes from Nonaka and Takuchi, two very prominent Japanese scholars who came up with that idea of, we need wise leaders. And wise leaders have that ethical respect in it, have that ingenious respect in it. Remember our conversation on serendipity. They always reflect on their strategy, what to do good, which choices to make and what not to do, by the way. It's an element of strategy. But at the same time, they can translate it into very practical and tangible things to do. So it's a combination of being conceptual on the strategic level in what to do for the next for the future, for the next couple of years, months, whatever, depending on your organization. But next to that, also being very practical in what you do with that. Because if it just remains conceptual, you cannot create value with it. So it's the combination of these two things, and it might be a paradox, but I truly like it. So the wisdom of leaders, the wisdom of organizations is what I would call for.
Yeah, so the tasks of board members will become more fun and less...
It's a good one. I think I would call it, they become more profound.
Profound, okay, yeah.
And so it will be more enjoyable, I think, as a board member. For sure. Because anomaly detection, fraud detection, these things can be easily outsourced, and that was the word that I was looking for, outsourced to AI systems these days. Again, needing to be supervised by human beings, but that is the job that I would delegate to a system, for sure.
Yeah, and if you talk about fraud detection, it may also close the information asymmetry between, for example, executive and non-executive directors.
Yeah, that's true. And that is in the decision making and the conversation that we have on the decisions that we take, but it's also in the communication, as I explained. And there I think we have the game changer with these transformer systems. The way we communicate with each other, supported, supplemented, and augmented by AI systems, can really help us to communicate much better. So the narrative that we will tell, let your AI systems help you with that. So I agree.
And do you think it's only for the board, like within the board, or should AI also be used to increase transparency and explainability to the other world?
It's an element of what we do at the board, and I think you govern it throughout the board, but it's an element of the whole operating model, of the business model, as I referred to it previously. So yes, sure, it can help us to explainable is a good thing. What you say, to make clear whatever we want to do and whether we've done it yes or no, and what we've learned with it if it was not as we planned out, but we can have that conversation. And I think it can tie better bonds with our stakeholders in that respect. It will also augment the legitimacy of organizations if we use it in the most optimal way. Yeah, for sure.
So we should also be transparent about the AI we use as well.
Yeah, that is what I said previously. I think we need to be very clear on that. So problem to use it, for sure, please do, but be also explicit on the fact that you use it. Don't hide it away, because then we cannot control it, then we cannot test it, then we cannot follow up on it. And that is not okay, I think.
Okay, so you should publish it somewhere in the annual report that you use.
Probably, that's an interesting thing. So maybe we'll have a chapter on the use of AI in our governance activities, but also in the organizational dynamics that we follow up on. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
I think it's yeah, obviously it's something we have to think
Yeah.
about.
And you need to be explicit about it. You need to disclose it to the outside world. That is important, because otherwise we will lose the faith of our stakeholders, and we are just there as an organization. If you do not have anymore the legitimacy, as we call it, that if you do not no longer have the faith of your stakeholders, yeah, your mission will be completely eroded.
Yeah.
And then an organization without a mission, yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So a mission is not just a slogan. A mission is truly a boundary system that we in the board should use as a reference. Are the decisions that we take, are the activities that we develop, are the systems that we put into use, are they consistent with that mission?
Okay, yeah.
By the way, this is it's a stupid anecdote, but it relates to the topic. I've been reading recently into some of the material. There is a lawsuit from Elon Musk against OpenAI, the company that produced ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And it was created by Elon Musk at the time. And now Elon Musk has filed a lawsuit against OpenAI and Sam Altman, the CEO, the current CEO, just because Elon Musk said, we created this organization as an open AI system for mankind, for humanity, because he was afraid at that time when they created the organization that DeepMind, which was a UK-based company, later on acquired by Google, now it's called Google DeepMind, that DeepMind would really put AI to use, and transformer systems would put them to use for the bad things in mankind. So he created, so his words obviously, and I've been reading in the lawsuit that he filed on the 29th of February, he filed a lawsuit against OpenAI and Sam Altman. And in that lawsuit, that mission that they had in the beginning is used as a reference. Now you're violating that mission. So just an anecdote to say, this mission is a very important reference for organization. You can even go to court if you violate the mission, the foundational elements of your organization.
Okay, yeah, so AI should always be adapted to, and the use of AI should always be adapted to the mission. And
absolutely, and that mission, indeed, is a reference also to see how we use our AI systems. Absolutely.
Okay, so it works two ways.
Yeah,
It's
a system.
Yeah. It's a system,
it fits within that. So I think you can augment the quality of the strategies that you deliver, and the mission is one very key element of the strategy development process, and also of the strategy execution process. So it can augment the quality of the value that deliver, but also it can also be used as a choice, a reference, whether or not we have to do something with AI. So it is a decision support system also, your mission. So it really guides you.
It will probably be a very difficult exercise for board members to decide on how much information do we give on how AI is, for example, used to hire new managers, to formulate a strategy, and so on, control what's happening in the company, because if it violates the mission, it can expose them to...
there is a legal aspect to it. There might be indeed implications towards their personal liabilities. Yeah. Yes, it might be. On the other hand, I think I'm pleading against being transparent in the use of AI across the board. By the way, what a great reference, across the board for board members. But meaning for all activities that the board does. Okay. For sure. I think, and sorry, that the organization does and that the board governs. So I think, we need to be transparent in these respects. Then, for the things that we've done, the things that we've decided, we can be held liable, but that's our responsibility.
Obviously,
that's what we are board members for. Somebody needs to be responsible, but also accountable for the decisions that we take.
Okay,
For sure. That is also what I think keeps the balance right. So that makes sure that we take the right decisions. There is implications of the decisions that we take. Otherwise, you would have to refer again to the moral hazard. So I can take decisions, but I'm not liable to them. I don't care. I'm not confronted with the negative consequences of it. That's not okay.
No, that's not how it works, obviously. But
it should not work like that.
You can obviously imagine that some people will be very reluctant to do it. But
that's an interesting one. But there again, I think training. and helping us out. And the network like GUBERNA and us partners within the GUBERNA network, I think that's why we are so important to come together and have these conversations, again, in an open manner. And sure, we're just at the forefront of things that will happen, and it goes very fast. That's why we have to come together on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And share information, share experience, and have these conversations. By the way, there's also that academic respect to that. And sure, I sometimes I call myself a pracademic. I'm into practice with the Wellington boots in the mud for our customers, but also as an academic. And I think academia, and that's also what GUBERNA does, we need to do some research here. We need to look at theories, we need to develop new theories, we need to test theories, and we need to make sure that the things that we do, the things now, but the things that we can do in the future are well underpinned by good scientific research. Yeah. And that can help the field also.
Yeah, so we will need to continuously communicate and convince board members to...
Yeah, not necessarily convincing for me. It's not about convincing. There is value in it, and again, there is also risk involved, it needs to be balanced out. It's a paradox, but we need to be open about it. And we should, indeed, I think I would plea also for not ignoring it. It would be stupid, I think, if we would ignore the value of digitization in general, but then for sure AI, and explicitly in the boardroom.
Okay, so maybe a last question. So, and I think a lot of board members are wondering, where will this end? Where will this go to, the whole AI in the boards? So what do you expect to see the next years, or what can board members expect to be confronted with?
Yeah, that's a very good question. First thing I have to say, I have no crystal ball. It's not just because I'm a researcher. Even as a consultant, I would say I have no crystal ball. Sorry for that.
It would make you incredibly rich.
Indeed, indeed. You can become a board member. No, we don't have it. But we truly know that the future is path dependent.
Yeah.
So what we know is that recently there's a lot of things that goes on, and the change is dramatic. You know, referring back to Elon Musk, one point in the evolution of OpenAI where he got really afraid is at ChatGPT-2. In GPT-2, it was not called ChatGPT, sorry for that, it was called GPT-2. And so in GPT-2, they generated a story. It was something about unicorns. It was even called Ovid's unicorns. On a very simple prompt, like, tell me a story about unicorns being discovered by a scientist in the Andes. And that was a prompt. And then GPT-2 generated the story. And Elon Musk read that, so the story goes. And he was flabbergasted. He thought, damn, this story has some pathos in it, it has some logos in it, it has some ethos in it, it even has some polemos in it. So this is what human beings would do, and very good storytellers would also do. We cannot make that distinction anymore. And then he said, whoa, we need to be very careful here. And I think, so there is a fundamental shift, and you can call it a revolution, I think, in the use of AI. And that was going on already from traditional systems, like advanced data and analytics, as I said, neural networks, and now transformer systems. But the combination of everything, fueled also by the massive amounts of data that we generate. And there we need to be careful, because obviously the data that we generate and that our systems, general systems, have access to, they are very, they are specific. They've been written in a very popular way and stuff like that. So we need to be very careful with that. But there is a revolution going on with the data and with the systems at hand. And so my suggestion for the future is to be open, to embrace it, to put it to the best possible use, and see strategy, as I always been teaching my students, see strategy as a continuous process. We design a strategy, we put AI into that, we digitize our organization, we see what the effect is, and then we have another iteration. And make these iterations quite small, so we can continuously evolve and see what the benefits are for us. And I think there is a very important call again for our board members to drive that process, but also to follow up on that process. And if you engage in such a strategic dialogue, I think it will be at the benefit of our organization, but also of the stakeholders of these organizations, be it, as I said, private organizations, but also semi-public and public organizations. So I think society will benefit from that. Will we get a solution for global warming? Will we resolve the problems of diversity? Probably not. But yeah, use our algorithms, our AI systems, our data sets in a wise way to become a wise company and hopefully become a wise society. That is what I hope for.
Okay. So yeah, this brings us to the end of our talk here. Thank you very much for being here. I think we can conclude that AI, poses some very nice opportunities for board members, but as well some serious challenges. And I think maybe the key takeaway is that we should always, as board members, try to understand what's happening and remain in the loop so that we are sure that AI doesn't take decisions for us as a board member. So I think that we can say that this is the most important message we want to give to the audience.
Absolutely, and it will also give us as a board member a role to fulfill for the future, to observe these things and whether or not they produce the right outcomes, the wanted outcomes. Because yeah, we need to make sure that the value that we create serves a purpose, and that's our role.
Yeah, okay, I think this is a very nice way to conclude this.
Would an AI system have come to the same conversation? Do you think so?
A very interesting question. I don't think so. I think an AI system wouldn't be as critical towards itself.
No.
And it wouldn't make as much mistakes in the English language as we have.
That makes us human, eh?
So that makes us definitely human.
And authenticity is very important.
So I think the audience can be sure we're no robots or no AI, and this is made by, in fact, Geert Scheipers from Delaware and Berghmans from GUBERNA. So this brings me to thanking the audience for their attention. And I would also like to recommend the other webinars in the series about AI made by GUBERNA. And I would also like to refer to some of our papers and articles we have written about AI. So thank you very much.
It was a pleasure, Sander. Thank you very much.